for the race.
Welcome to the most beautiful and the fastest Grand Prix circuit in the world, the 3.7-mile Österreich ring, where I can tell you the temperature is a turbo-sapping 85 degrees. And you see there the grid. Any moment now, the warm-up lap will be commencing, and it's going to be a very, very hot and demanding race for the drivers. Nelson Piquet and Riccardo Patrese, for the first time, have put two Brabhams in the pole and second fastest positions. And they are, of course, the turbocharged BMW-powered Brabhams, packed with ice. Prost and Torbay, third and fourth. Then Arnoux and Rosberg, the fastest 3-litre car, and so on down the grid. Niki Lauda is well down in 10th position. John Watson is all very well down in 18th position, and neither of the Marlboro McLarens were at all happy in this morning's warm-up, where incidentally Patrese and Piquet were fastest ahead of Alain Prost, who had engine trouble, Patrick Torbay, who is going well, René Arnoux, who broke his gearbox, and now you see us going round the Österreich ring with James Hunt telling us about it.
Yes, that's Niki Lauda in the car. Nice shot from on the rollover bar, cameraman on the bar. He's just gone through the chicane, which was put in on the track to slow the cars down on the very quick loop that used to be taken flat out at about 180. It's all long, sweeping straights. This is all flat out straight now. He's up to full speed. The turbos are getting over 180 miles an hour down here with their super powerful engines. The Cosworth engine car, this McLaren that Marlboro McLaren that Niki Lauda is driving. Very quick. This corner nowadays is almost flat out. They turn here. It's a right-hander. Taken, just knock it down a gear, swinging out wide. Now we go over a little brow. It's blind to the driver. It was blind to you, as you see. Down another long straight, coming on to possibly the fastest point on the circuit. Now the road starts to run downhill a bit. Their cars get a bit of a slipstream here. They'll be looking to slipstream, and then the road turns slightly left and then into the Bosch curve, which is a downhill sweeping right-hander. Very, very difficult entrance. Here we go. He's on the brakes now, turning into the corner, sweeping down the hill. This corner is governed by how well you get into it. From now on, it's all flat out. Car swinging out wide. Car goes very heavy on the suspension here and very heavy on the steering. See him just knocking it up a gear there into fourth gear, and then the two very tricky left-handers. The car goes very light over the brow of this hill. They're still doing something like 140, 150 miles an hour. Short straight, and down to the next left-hand corner, again, quick and wide, and when the car swings out wide, then he's got to get sharply back over the road. As we go up to the brow here and turn right, he turns into the corner on the apex of the brow. Down into the dip, up again over another blind brow he goes, and then down to the last corner on the lap. Medium speed right-hander, well, I say medium speed, still about 120 miles an hour, 130. The Jochen Rindt curve, named after the greatest Austrian driver, or the great Austrian driver. Hard to say that he's the greatest against success that Niki's had. And that's the completion of one lap. You saw the start-finish line flash under the car then, and producers kindly letting us ride with him for another lap.
Well, and as Niki Lauda goes round, the cars themselves are completing their warm-up lap coming out of the Jochen Rindt curve, led by Nelson Piquet and Riccardo Patrese. And I can tell you that it is firmly believed, although not absolutely certain, that one or both of the Brabhams are going to do a pit stop for fuel and tyres, provided they get to half distance.
Yes, I spoke to Gordon Murray, the Brabham designer. They were keeping it a secret before the race, but he told me that once we were on air, they were both going to stop. They're planning doing their same half-tanks trip, and they're fairly confident the car's going to last the distance, and we are certainly keeping our fingers crossed because, as you all know, the enthusiasts who've been watching the races regularly, we've been waiting in vain.
Well, that fastest lap of René Arnoux was in 1980, and Nelson Piquet's fastest lap in practice was 1:27.6, which is some 11 miles an hour faster than the lap record. So there you see in pole position Nelson Piquet, just behind him Riccardo Patrese, then Prost and Torbay, and they're away. And coming through from the back is Keke Rosberg, who has already passed, and there, straight in trouble, straight into the Armco, can't identify for the moment, but as they surge away. Let's have a close look. There's two cars identified there and a third one going off on the side, a fourth joining from the pit road as he's gone out wide, and we will identify as quickly as we possibly can. We're looking up the track while I talk to you, but can't see them properly, but it looks already as though 4 cars are out on lap 1. Meantime, it's one of the Brabhams in the lead. It's Piquet, Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion, followed by his teammate Riccardo Patrese. And Piquet, as they're coming down towards the Bosch curve, with Prost in 3rd position, then Tombe, then Arnoux, then De Angelis, then Rosberg, then Alboreto, and Derek Warwick is in about 10th position. And as they go round the Bosch curve, down towards the Texaco bends, Nelson Piquet and Patrese will, of course, as they have in the previous 3 races in the turbo cars, be trying to build up a substantial cushion to allow them to come in round about the 25th or 26th lap to do the pit stop that we have been expecting in the British and the French and the German Grand Prix. And we think, and I emphasise think, that one of the cars that has gone out is John Watson, the man who is in 2nd position in the World Championship.
Yes, it's very hard to see. I thought that both those 2 cars, or 2 of the cars that got tangled there were red. That looked like Lauda going through there. But it certainly Messi Rosberg made a terrific start from the 3rd row of the grid, and he's very keen to do well today. He's determined to win a Grand Prix before the end of the season and accumulate as many points as possible. But it's going to be a hard battle for him here against the power of the turbos, although he qualified fantastically well.
Yeah, and Rosberg is just behind Elio De Angelis. Now, there are the 2 Brabhams in team formation. Number 1, world champion, lap 2, Nelson Piquet, leading his Italian teammate Riccardo Patrese, winner of this year's Monaco Grand Prix, going up the ascent, the blind crest, which leads down to the Bosch curve. And here is a replay of the start. Now, let's try and identify the cars for you. All right, now they get away, and Piquet leads.
Yes, Rosberg, you see on the top right-hand corner of the picture, made a terrific start. Rosberg going up against the pit wall, and then we'll just as a tangle about now, we've got a couple of cars. Here we are, a collision. Maybe it's an Alfa. 2 Alfas colliding, and there's a puncture on Tombe on the Ferrari. He's trying to get the car around to the pits, and Alboreto has hit the barrier. He's parked against things, so looks as if there's been some sort of action, but we've missed the main excitement.
Well, we can tell you, we think almost certainly that the 2 cars that went out on lap 1 were the 2 Alfa Romeos of Giacomelli and De Cesaris. And with Patrese now leading from Nelson Piquet, we can see that Patrick Tombe with a shredded tyre is out, that Michele Alboreto is out, the leaders go past, and in 3rd position it is Prost behind, then Arnoux in 4th position, De Angelis in the John Player Special is in 5th place, in 6th place it's Nigel Mansell, 7th it is Rosberg, and in 8th position it is Derek Warwick in the Tolman. Derek, very, very confident. Now look at this. You ought to see if the Brabhams have got it right, them building up at least a second per lap increase in their lead, and it's Patrese leading now from Piquet, and the Renault's holding on.
Yes, Patrese is following the good form he showed on race tires this morning in race trim. He was quite a lot quicker than Piquet, nearly a second, or half a second rather, in the warm-up, and the Brabhams are looking utterly dominant. They qualified a lot quicker than anybody else. They're of course running a lighter fuel though, which gives them a weight advantage in the early part of the race, which in turn is translated into a speed advantage. But as we've waited in vain for the last 3 races, they are now building up the lead that they will need in order to make the pit stop.
Well, looking at the lap chart, and we are now on lap 3, it seems virtually certain that the 2 cars that we saw go out, and there is Patrick Tombe limping in. Watson and Lauda are both okay and in the race, that's for sure. So it was definitely Andrea De Cesaris and Bruno Giacomelli, the 2 Alfa Romeo drivers who were out on that lap. Now, there are the leaders. Patrese going up towards the Hella-Leak chicane, followed by Piquet. In 3rd position, it is Alain Prost. There is Patrese, Monaco Grand Prix winner. Now, the Brabhams are actually starting this race with dry ice packed around the fuel tank, and that is Patrick Torbay coming into the pits on lap 3, obviously to have that offside tyre change. The man who won the German Grand Prix at Hockenheim, his first Grand Prix victory last week, and a very welcome victory it was too, after the dreadful crash that Pironi had in practice, because Ferrari really needed something to get their tails up. And as usual, they're changing not only the tyre that has been damaged, but all the other 3 as well. And the Ferrari team were practicing this in the warm-up period this morning. Their fastest was 11 seconds. Torbay is talking to Forgieri in the blue shirt, that's the Ferrari team manager, and to frenzied applause from the crowd. Patrick Torbay in the V6 turbocharged Ferrari accelerates away a long way down, and I wonder if we are now going to see an epic drive by the Frenchman, with Piquet in second place behind Patrese. So on lap 4 now, Patrese is leading, Piquet is second, Prost is in third position, Arnoux is in fourth place, in fifth position it is De Angelis, in sixth place it is Mansell, and in seventh place now it is Derek Warwick, and Theo Fabi, his teammate, is in eighth position in the Tolman.
Yes, poor Patrick Torbay, he must have got that puncture quite early on in the lap, and he's had to limp all the way around, which is a very slow business with the tyre flapping, because you can't go too fast, otherwise you damage the suspension. And he certainly drove it very sensibly, but it's put him well out of the race.
Well, now, where are Niki Lauda and John Watson? And the answer is that Niki Lauda is in 11th position, and John Watson is way down in 19th place, and this is lap 5. I'm not particularly surprised. Now we are looking at the Glatz curve as they come up from the Helle Licht curve, and the 2 Marlboro McLaren cars, as we look at one of the Tolmans, the 2 Marlboro McLaren cars have had trouble all through practice in getting the balance right. They've had a lot of tyre trouble, wearing their tyres very, very quickly indeed. Indeed, in practice, they were only lasting 1 lap for the qualifiers. Now, there is Nigel Mansell, followed by Keke Rosberg. Jacques Lafitte seems to be coming up through the field a bit, and that's interesting, because Lafitte, like his teammate Cheever, had terrible problems in practice, and they worked very hard in the warm-up period in an effort to get the car set up properly. Lap 5 coming towards the end of then, and I will give you the gap between race leader, the Brabham BMW, and the second one behind it, and it's Patrese leading. Piquet is 1.4 seconds behind him. Now there's quite a long gap before Prost goes through, and a long gap before Arnoux is still in 4th position. And there is Niki Lauda. Now it looks to me as though Lauda is starting to make a charge and come up through the field. Lap 6, Patrese leading from Piquet. Prost in the Renault 3rd, Arnoux in the Renault 4th, De Angelis in the John Player Special 5th, Warwick and Fabi are 6th and 7th, and in 8th place is well, looking across the circuit now, there round the Bosch curve, and we are on lap 6. And I remind you that these cars are lapping even at race speeds in not very much less than 150 miles an hour. There it is, 141.8 miles an hour, the fastest lap so far by Nelson Piquet on lap 5, and we are now on lap 6 out of 53. There is Piquet, fastest on the circuit, but over the crest goes his teammate Riccardo Patrese. Now, we may look back down the field, and the next man you will see in the yellow Renault will be Alain Prost, as across the line to complete lap 6 go the 2 Brabhams. Now, I wonder what the gap is between them and the 3rd man, Alain Prost, because we will be able to make some sort of estimate. Well, it's about 5 seconds. They need to pull away at a slightly faster rate. You must also remember that as the Brabhams are really motoring around this circuit, their fuel load is lightening all the time. Now, look to the left, and the next moving dot that you see, well, there's virtually a clear circuit, and we see there is Alain Prost in 3rd position. So you can see for yourselves the gap between the first and second and the third man, Prost. In fourth place, it is still Arnoux. In fifth place, it is still De Angelis. In sixth place, it is still Warwick, and seventh is still Farby. Eighth is Nigel Mansell, and in ninth position, it is Derek Daly. In 10th position, it is Jacques Lafitte, and in 11th place, it is Nicky Lauda, ahead of 12th place man Brian Henton in the Tyrrell. And we look at Riccardo Patrese on lap 7. John Watson is in 17th place at the moment.
Yes, poor John Watson, he'd had a very unhappy practice session here. He qualified at a time of 1 minute 34, which was pretty slower than Lauda, and yet he had odd occasions when he'd go out, they'd put a set of tyres on the car in the non-timed practice sessions and was going much quicker than that. He's actually been in the 32s at some stage, so they've had trouble with the car. They can't really diagnose what it is or what it's been, but they've had very inconsistent performance. That's an excellent shot of Patrese and Piquet sliding their Brabhams through that chicane. That's the slowest point on the circuit, and then accelerating away. And I can't see, that looks like a Williams to me.
No, I think it's Roberto Guerrero's car. It is. It's the ensign of Roberto Guerrero, and I can tell you that the two Brabhams are beautifully on target, because on lap 7, and they are now on lap 8, they were leading Alain Prost here by 10.5 seconds. So at the end of 25 laps, if they keep this pace up, they will theoretically be some 25 seconds or so at least ahead of the Renault, and that would give them time to come in, stop, and that is Theo Farby in the Tolman, who was, in 7th position. I don't know what his trouble is, obviously, but he's been able to pull off the circuit. And it could well be that it's a heat problem, because with temperatures well up into the mid-85s here at the Österreich Ring, we're on lap 8 as I talk to you, it's very, very demanding for the turbo cars. And the Brian Hart Turbo has not got the length of development time behind it that the Renaults have, for instance. Theo Farby walking away from his broken Tolman back to the start to report what has happened. And meantime, the leaders have now completed 8 laps out of 53, and we now look at Chico Serra and Mark Sura, and behind him Manfred Winkelhock in the ATS. And if you're wondering where Tommy Byrne, the Irish driver, is in his first Grand Prix, he is in 19th position. John Watson is in 16th place, and Derek Warwick too is out of the race. Well, this is appalling luck for the Tolman team, because Theo Farby and Derek Warwick have gone out of the race on the same lap, on their 8th lap, when we were hoping they were going to do so well.
I can't see what the problem is, obviously, but there's certainly plenty of heat shimmering off the engine there. You can see the heat shimmering, and it's definitely a problem for the turbocharged cars, in that if nothing else, they have to run slightly less boost on their turbochargers in order not to overheat the intercooler of the turbocharger. That's the most susceptible part of the system to the heat.
Well, Derek Warwick was in 6th position, and incidentally, we know that Ferrari offered Derek Warwick a place in their team to replace Didier Pironi until the end of the season, which he turned down because he wants to drive the new Tolman. And we know that he is under consideration by Renault for their team next season. So Derek Warwick has really made a name for himself. But back to the race, and on lap 9 completed, therefore we are now into lap 10. The two Brabhams are forging ahead. It is still Patrese leading. It is still Piquet in 2nd position. It is still the two Renaults of Prost and Arnoux, and they are now 11 seconds behind 3rd and 4th places. Then in 5th place, as we watch Nicky Lauda, who is now in 7th position. But behind the two Renaults is Elio De Angelis. And there's Nicky Lauda being passed by Brian Henton. I wouldn't have expected that, James.
No, Brian Henton going very well indeed in the Tyrrell, and Nigel Mansell also is right behind Lauda and in very good position to get the toe, whether he might have come a little bit too soon out of the toe, but he's got his little draft there. Can he get inside up the hill under braking? It certainly looks like it. No, not this time. Mansell threatening. Terrific outing for the British drivers then. Up near the front of the alternative race, as we might say. And as I say, the Tyrrells have really been going very well indeed. And Michele Alboreto went very fast in practice, then had a big crash, which was a problem. He's had to race the spare car, which he has also crashed, as we saw earlier. We didn't see why or how that came about. We just saw him parked rather hard against the barrier. And that's just the top speed of Piquet's Brabham, according to the organizer's speed trap, putting over 300 kilometers an hour on the straight. That's about 185 miles an hour off the top of my head.
Yes, 190 miles an hour, we reckon, on the approach to the Bosch curve. Lap 11 now, and as we look at ex-world champion Niki Lauda, who you may remember decided not to take part in last Sunday's German Grand Prix because he injured his wrist in practice, has made an excellent recovery during the week under the control of his trainer, Willy Dungal, and now he's going up towards the Rindt curve, but Niki Lauda is in 9th position with Brian Hinton, therefore, Super Hen in 8th position in the Tyrrell. And on lap 11, it is still, as we look at Hinton and Lauda, and with Niki Lauda, number 8, being followed by Nigel Mansell across the line, the order is still Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham BMW, leading Nelson Piquet. In 3rd position, it is still Prost. In 4th position, it is still Arnoux. 5th is Elio De Angelis. 6th is Keke Rosberg. In 7th place, it is Jacques Lafitte. In 8th place, it is Brian Hinton.
Yes, well, Niki Lauda is definitely struggling, and I know that the McLaren team and some of the other Michelin users were not very happy with the tyres that they've had here, and felt that they weren't fully competitive. I think Renault feel that the additional speed of the Brabham at the moment is very much to do with the tyres that they've got, Brabham being on Goodyear, of course. I wouldn't think that that was the whole of the story, because there's no doubt that the Brabham is an exceptionally good chassis, and the BMW engine is certainly producing plenty of power. But one of the strange things about this whole season has been that there we are, that's just Piquet, the gap from Piquet to Prost being 13 seconds, so the two Brabhams are pulling a pretty healthy lead now. That's going to be plenty for them to do their pit stop with, because bear in mind, when they come out of the pits, they'll still be faster than the other cars, although they'll then be carrying a similar amount of fuel. They'll have fresh tyres on, and so they're quite capable of catching people up. And the leader's now coming past Patrick Tombe, who lost so much time with that first tyre that he's really well out of the running. But the odd thing about this season with tyres has been not that one company has particularly been more dominant than another, but of the two companies involved, but they've both had their moments. Sometimes Michelin have had a definite advantage, sometimes Goodyear have had a definite advantage, and unfortunately for us enthusiasts of close, exciting racing, they've very rarely been of similar performance together. They've always been one good and one bad, and they haven't come together, which has been a great pity for close racing.
Now, as the leaders take Patrick Tombe in the Ferrari, who is in 18th place, they are on lap 12 with De Cesaris and Giacomelli out of the race. Daly is out of the race. Alboreto is out. So is Keegan with steering trouble. And Patrick Tombe has been in to change a tyre. But the real interest at the moment, with Patrick Tombe being sandwiched between Riccardo Patrese, who is on lap 13 leading his teammate Nelson Piquet by 1.4 seconds. The real interest is, are either or both of the Brabhams going for the first time to last until half distance in the race and come in and make this much vaunted fuel stop and tyre change? I can tell you this, that having talked to Paul Rocher, the BMW engine chief, they are more confident about their ability to do it. There is Piquet passing the gentlemanly Patrick Tombe on the Bosch curve, and BMW are more optimistic that the two Brabhams are going to get to and beyond half distance than they have ever been before. They have a new exhaust system on the car. They have new cooling arrangements to keep the petrol pump itself cooler and avoid vapor locks. They have dry ice packed around the bag tank. And Patrese and Piquet, there is Nelson Piquet in second position behind the leader on lap 13, coming through to complete it now, and I will give you the gap as they go across the line between them and the third place man, Alain Prost, and it's got to be, I would estimate, something like 17 seconds. That's Chico Serra, Winkelhock, and about to be lapped by Riccardo Patrese, the German in the ATS, and his teammate Eliseo Salazar failed to qualify. They pass Fabi's car, and the gap now is exactly 20 seconds on lap 14, so that puts the Brabhams right on, in fact, ahead of their target to build up a cushion between themselves and the Renaults, which are in third and fourth places still, that's to say Alain Prost and Arnoux. There's Piquet. He's got Chico Serra in front of him in the Fittipaldi F9. And behind him, he's got Winkelhock in the ATS that he is lapped. They're going round the Bosch curve. That's a 140 mile an hour bend. Up into fifth gear, into the chicane, the Texaco bends actually. And we are actually on lap 14 now, so that caption is right up to date. And as you see, De Angelis is in fifth position, and the leading 3-litre non-turbo car, and Keke Rosberg is in sixth position in the Williams. In seventh position, it's Jacques Lafitte, and they really do seem to have got the talbot going in the warm-up period. In eighth position, and the highest he has been certainly in this race, although he's been well up in previous Grand Prix, Brian Henson with his teammate out of the race. And then in ninth position is Niki Lauda, 10th is Nigel Mansell, in 11th place is Eddie Cheever in the other talbot, so they really are going, and in 12th place Mauro Baldi in the Arrows. And this is how well Patrick Tambay is not going, because he has got behind him now Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi, and it looks to me as though Tambay is going to be caught and passed by Serra and Winkelhock, and and Mauro Baldi in the Arrows, the third of the three cars that we're looking at now. But we can expect it to pull away, and there is Sura, actually Mark Sura in the orange Arrows, passing Winkelhock. Tambay comes down towards the Bosch curve, and Mark Sura, number 29, is in 16th place. Tommy Byrne is still in the running. He's been lapped, but Tommy Byrne, the Formula 3 British Championship leader in his first Grand Prix in the Theodore car, is in 17th place. Well, you have seen the lap times, and you know that Nelson Piquet, the fastest so far, is lapping at 141 miles an hour, which is actually below René Arnoux' 1980 lap record. Arnoux, who came to the start of this Grand Prix with the knowledge that he had been in pole position at all the three previous Austrian Grand Prix, but he wasn't able to match that in this race. And here is Winkelhock and Sura. Here are Winkelhock and Sura battling, with Serra pulling away from them.
Yes, they're having a terrific dice, albeit well down the field, but they're climbing all over each other. And that's one of the great beauties of this Österreich ring circuit, because there are long enough straights to get a little bit of a slipstream. There is Riccardo Patrese, I think, just lapping John Watson, and that, I think, should underline to everybody the huge difference in performance of these cars on these fast circuits. This is really suitable for the turbocharged cars, but it's a very nice circuit from that point of view, because they've got plenty of room to overtake, plenty of straights to get a slipstream, and so it's a much livelier race than most.
Arnoux to the pits. I keep on saying this, it's happened again, and we're not seeing it, but I can tell you that René Arnoux, the Frenchman who was in fourth position for so long, has come into the pits, and hopefully our Austrian producer will soon show us the Renault down there. And the Frenchman, who had trouble in practice when he broke his gearbox, is effectively out of the points. as Riccardo Patrese, who has now lapped Josh Watson, who is in 13th place, and goes on his way. And on lap 16 then, it is Patrese with Piquet in second position, still Prost in third place, but I wonder how much longer he is going to be able to keep going, and whether whatever it was that affected his teammate René Arnoux will also affect him. But he's still in third position, and up into fourth place comes the leading 3-litre car. There is the leader, Patrese, who has lapped number 30, Mauro Baldi, and the leading 3-litre car now on lap 16 is that of Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special. Then it is Keke Rosberg in fifth position. In sixth position, therefore, and into the World Championship points comes Jacques Lafitte, followed by Brian Hinton in seventh place and Niki Lauda in eighth position. And now we see René Arnoux getting the mandatory and customary wheel and tyre change, just in case it needs doing, but something else is afoot.
Yes, there's a fair bit of steam coming from the front end of the car. Don't quite know what there be. Maybe that I think is smoke off the brakes. The brakes look very hot indeed, quite exceptionally hot. And they are looking around there, around the braking system, around by the driver's feet. So, yet another tale of woe by Renault. Arnoux had lots of trouble in practice as well. And really, as I seem to say at every Grand Prix, I don't know what's wrong with Renault, but they really are making a terrible mess of a job that until this season they appeared to be doing very well. They got the car better and better, very competitive. They arrived at the beginning of the season looking as if they'd sweep all before them. And they can't make the car run. They can't make the car finish a race, which is immensely disappointing. We've got an interesting situation I've just been thinking about, and into the pits comes Nigel Mansell in the JPS. We can't see what's on it. Once more, we haven't got it on picture, but we're right opposite the pits here. I'll just have a look, see what they're doing. They're changing tyres, but they're talking, so he's got some sort of a problem. Anyway, we'll keep you posted on that. The two Brabham drivers have arrived at a very interesting situation, and should they go the full distance? And Piquet is in the pits.
Yeah, this is it. Nelson Piquet now, for the first time, you see the much expected Brabham pit stop. We didn't get a stopwatch on it, I'm afraid, because we were looking at Nigel Mansell, but it's a very quick one. There is the fuel going in, and you can see that the mechanics have all got fireproof suits on. The car is up on its own pneumatic jacks. Nelson Piquet came into the pits in the lead, in second position, and he has therefore rejoining the race, but with fuel tank topped up and on new tyres. Manfred Winkelhock is clearly out of the race.
Well, that looked to me like a very efficient pit stop on Piquet's car. It appeared to go well according to plan. There was no panic. The Brabham mechanics did an excellent job. Interesting situation that developed is that for the first time really in the Grand Prix, we got Patrese and Piquet running very, very equally. They're both very much in the top 5 drivers in the world. They're world-class drivers, both of them. It's been a matter of some conjecture who is the better. There's Piquet out on his cold tyres. He'll be slow for a lap or two because apart from the tyres being cold, not having the grip these days, they have to run very, very low pressures indeed when the tyres are cold, because of course as it gets hot the air expands and the pressure increases, in order for the pressure not to get too high when they're hot. So they start on almost what's practically like 4 flat tyres. The car will slide about a lot. The interesting situation is that they're only 2 points apart in the World Championship, Patrese and Piquet, and I've been quite sure that both of them will be out to try and prove who is the dominant driver today. And a lot of it will depend, of course, if they're as equally matched throughout the race as they have been in the early part of the race, then, of course, very much the result of the race could well depend on how their respective crews of mechanics do the 2 pit stops. Now, we've seen Piquet in and out with no trouble at all, and a very efficient stop. So we now wait with bated breath to see what's going to happen to Patrese.
Well, lap 19, and there is the race leader, Riccardo Patrese, who, as James said, has yet to make his pit stop, if he's going to make one, and we don't know for sure. But certainly in second position it is Alain Prost. In third position now it is Elio De Angelis. And Piquet has only slipped down to 4th position because he is still ahead of Keke Rosberg, who is 5th, and therefore, of course, ahead also of Jacques Lafitte, who is in 6th place, and all the rest of them. Hinton in 7th place, Niki Lauda in 8th position, and Eddie Cheever in 9th place, and Mauro Baldi in 10th position. Lap 19 then, and that is very significant. There is the confirmation. that Nelson Piquet is still in fourth position as Riccardo Patrese goes ahead to start another lap. Now, I have to tell you that I can look across and see the Brabham pit as you are watching here. Riccardo Patrese driving beautifully smoothly with a very commanding lead, and it is very clear from the attitudes of the Brabham mechanics, who are getting everything absolutely ready. They are still in their fireproof suits. Two of them are still in their crash helmets in case there is any fire. They have got the air bottles ready, they've got the fuel line ready, and I'm expecting Riccardo Patrese, that we are all looking at now as he comes down to the Bosch curve on lap 20, out of 53, in the lead, to come into the pits. Now, he goes from the Bosch curve into the left hand. He's in the Bosch curve now. This is a 140 mile an hour, fourth gear, change up into fifth gear here, into the Texaco bends, third gear as he approaches the first left-hander, up into fourth. This is 140 miles an hour. He goes down again to third, this left-hander. It's a very bumpy section here, and that's louder over the crest of the hill, and we're still watching for Patrese to come in at the end of this lap.
Yes, they're quite ready, but there's no reason to suppose that Patrese will necessarily come in now, because we're quite a long way short of half distance at the moment, and therefore he can obviously, depending on how much fuel they started him off with, he can obviously go quite well, and he's gone straight past this time. Now, Piquet's stop cost him quite a lot of time on the road, because he appears to be nearly a minute behind Patrese, and in fact, by being on cold tires, we've just had our caption come up on our little information screen, and he's now 61 seconds behind Patrese. So Patrese is still building away on the lead. Of course, Piquet will now have a fair bit of fuel on board, probably more than anybody else in the race, because the BMW engine being pretty thirsty, running all that power. So Patrese could stay out for another, getting on for 10 laps before he necessarily has to stop, entirely depending on how much fuel they've got in. Unfortunately, we can see the back of the Brabham pit boards, but we can't see the signals on them from here because we're the wrong end of the pits for them.
Well, the way they bring the drivers in is to hold out a big board with their number in, and I'm talking about Patrese and Piquet, and the boards are going out at the moment to show Nelson Piquet what his position is, and the answer is fourth position, and as James has said, he's just over a minute behind the race leader, Riccardo Patrese. But if the Brabham personnel, as we look at Riccardo Patrese, show him the reverse side of the board with his car number on and a red border around it, that is the signal to say that he's got to come in next lap. And that board is being readied now, but which side is going to be shown to him, I don't know. But lap 21, coming up to half distance, and it's not the come-in side. He's just completed his 21st lap, T being the man you are looking at, Riccardo Patrese, who leads Alain Prost second, De Angelis third, Piquet fourth, Rosberg fifth, and Lafitte sixth.
Well, Piquet seems to be taking an inordinately long time to get his new tyres warmed up, but of course he may have come in for some reason because he wasn't happy, although they didn't appear to do anything to his car. He may have been unhappy with the way the tyres that he got on before were performing, but he's losing a second a lap at the moment to Patrese, and Keke Rosberg, who's been running right with him since he came out of the pits, is keeping up with him very well, which is quite a surprise. So Piquet is either failing to get his tyres hot or would appear to have gone into some sort of problem.
Well, there is Nigel Mansell coming into the pits for the second time, gesticulating to the back of the car, and from the rather despondent air of the mechanics around him, I suspect that he may be retiring. But John Watson is in 11th place, his teammate Niki Lauda is in 8th position, and Keke Rosberg is now right with Nelson Piquet. And there's Chico Serra and Elio De Angelis. De Angelis in the black and gold John Player Special in 3rd position on lap 22, and he's now some 50 seconds between the, I was going to say flying Riccardo Patrese. He has very much got both wheels, all four wheels on the ground, but he's going incredibly quickly, and Nigel Mansell is out of the race. He's out of the car, and I suspect he will be trying to get straight back because his wife, Roseanne, has been taken into hospital today to give birth to their first child, and I know naturally that Nigel Mansell, who's been on the phone to her all the time virtually, will want to get back very quickly indeed. We look at Elio De Angelis in third position on lap 23, the race being led by Riccardo Patrese from Alain Prost in second place, De Angelis in third position, Nelson Piquet fourth with Keke Rosberg right behind him in fifth place, and Jacques Lafitte in sixth position, but with 30 laps to go.
So 32 laps to go in that race, and we'll be back a little later on. Lords. We'll be back there as soon as the clouds blow away. Let's hope they do. Meantime, back to the Austrian Grand Prix, and it looks to me as though Riccardo Patrese has now gone into the pits. Murray Walker.
And you couldn't have come back at a better time, because here is Riccardo Patrese, the race leader, completing his fuel and tyre stop, and it has been done sensationally quickly, because it took only 14 seconds from the time the wheel stopped to the time the wheel started turning again, and Patrese has not only gone through, but he has retained his lead.
Yes, Riccardo Patrese has got out just in front, but he's on the cold tires. You see the car sliding about there, and Alain Prost went past. He can't be very far behind now, because he went past the pits just as Patrese was going up the hill into the first corner, and I'm quite sure that while Patrese is warming his tyres up, Alain Prost will come right up to him, if not get ahead momentarily. So it's been beautifully done, and we now, certainly for the moment, have a very close race indeed in our hands. If we hold that shot, there is Alain Prost. He's in comfortable sight of Riccardo Patrese, and of course he is the man on the warm tyres, running competitively and everything, and he will have a lot more grip than Patrese has for the first couple of laps. It'll take him probably 2 laps to warm up, but he was giving it some real stick, Patrese. You saw him slide about all over the place through the chicane, and this is very exciting stuff indeed at last.
This is lap 5. There is the second place man. This is lap 25. I'm sorry about that. And this is the second place man, Alain Prost, in the Renault, with the race leader, Riccardo Patrese, metaphorically in his sights as he crests the rise. And it's conceivably possible that Prost, who is chasing the cold-tired Brabham of Patrese, may get right up with the Italian, and Patrese will have to be very, very careful not to be rattled, because he must let those tyres of his warm. Meantime, in third position, it is still Elio De Angelis. In fourth position, it is still Nelson Piquet, and it's significant that Piquet has not been making any real impression on Elio De Angelis, and it's significant too, there's the second place man, Prost, that Piquet actually came in on lap 17 well before half distance.
Yes, I don't know what's happened to Piquet since his pit stop, but he has really been like two different people. Now we've got both cars on either side of the screen. There's only 2 seconds in at the moment, but the time is ticking away for Alain Prost, because Patrese's tyres are getting hotter and grippier all the time, and although he's still closing, I don't think, it's my guess that he won't be able to get past unless Patrese gets into the sort of decline that inexplicably Nelson Piquet has gone into. But Patrese, as he came out of the pits, did not look to me like a man in a decline. He's really positively hurling the car about, which is a good thing on cold tyres, because the more you can slide the car, the more heat you get into them. And but by now, they should be just about up to full pressure and full working temperature. And so Patrese should be able to settle down now, and we'll see what the relative performances are. Remember now that he will have the same sort of fuel load on board that Alain Prost has, and no longer that big weight advantage of running light tanks that he had early in the race. And so there are a lot of questions about to be answered.
And here is Patrese completing another lap. This is the man who is 6th equal in the World Championship with 19 points, being chased by Alain Prost, who is in 4th position in the World Championship with 25 points. And they're coming up now, or rather Patrese is, to catch and pass and therefore lap Niki Lauda in the Marlboro McLaren, who is in 8th position in the race. And you can see the gap between Patrese in the lead on lap 27 and Alain Prost, who has now got to pass the hero of Austria, Niki Lauda, double world champion in the Marlboro McLaren, ex-Ferrari driver. And Alain Prost is really closing the gap, and he should take Lauda before the Bosch curve. Indeed, he does so. Into the little left-hander before the Bosch curve. And here is the Frenchman. And by the way, the very strong rumour here is that René Arnoux, who of course is out of the race, has already signed for Ferrari next season. And the supposition is that Patrick Tambay and René Arnoux will be the Ferrari drivers, because there is no love lost between Arnoux and Alain Prost after Arnoux deciding that he was going to win the French Grand Prix against signals. Race leader, Patrese, lap 27, out of 23, so there are still 25 to go at the end of this, and into the pits is there Mark Surer in the arrows for a Pirelli tyre change. We've seen Michelin tyre changes, we've seen Goodyear tyre changes, and now we're seeing a Pirelli tyre change. And Mark Surer was in 12th position when he came into the pits. And on lap 28 now, it is Riccardo Patrese leading with Alain Prost in second position, and there they are, the two first and second men. In third position, it is Elio De Angelis. Fourth is Nelson Piquet, who is only just ahead of fifth place man Keke Rosberg. Sixth, it is still Jacques Lafitte, and in seventh place, the first British driver, Brian Hinton, just out of the points. He finished seventh in the German Grand Prix. Eighth is Niki Lauda. In ninth position, it is Mauro Baldi, and in 10th position, it is John Watson, and then in 12th position behind him, it is Mark Surer, and Tommy Byrne is still going strong in 14th place.
Well, as they settle down now, for the time being, it certainly looks as if Patrese and Prost are pretty evenly matched, and we may well have a good run to the finish on our hands. Patrese's pit stop, I have to say... Oh!
Yeah, that is Patrese off. Patrese off in the lead, and the crowd floods forward. And now, sensation, I guess maybe, and I am hypothesizing, he looks all right, that his tyres were not yet warm, but it seems very surprising. He's been going hot and strong for quite a while. Anyway, it's now all up to Nelson Piquet, who is therefore up into third position immediately. And once again, it is a Renault leading a Grand Prix, with Riccardo Patrese sensationally out of the race on lap 29, out of 53. But this time we have seen the Brabhams come in and refuel and change tyres. But now, on lap 29, Alain Prost leads. And in an amazing, these days, second place, a superb drive, it is the Italian Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special, the first non-turbo, in second place. In third place, it is Piquet, and in fourth place, it's Rosberg. Well, here is a replay of Patrese going off.
Yes, very hard to see what happened, but I have a suspicion that some steam or something was coming out of Patrese's car. I think what may have happened is that the engine may have blown and thrown water or something, or steam on the tyres, or oil onto the tyres, but certainly it looks like it wasn't Patrese's fault. It certainly wasn't cold tyres. They had plenty of time to get warm, but there was definitely some sort of fluid or substance coming out underneath the car, getting onto the tyres, making the car completely uncontrollable. So that was extremely bad luck for Riccardo Patrese, who'd been going so well. And as I said quite usually, jolly bad luck for us as well, because we, for the first time for quite some time, had a very close race on our hands, because it seemed that Prost and Patrese were very evenly matched, and Patrese had made a truly amazing pit stop. The Brabham mechanics were perfectly quick. Here is the Brabham pit now we're looking at now, and they will be bitterly disappointed because Patrese was going so well, and Patrese himself did a very good job, because his decelerating and accelerating times were amazing, because he was stopped stationary for 14 seconds in the pit, and yet he was only about 32 seconds in front of Prost, if I remember rightly, when he went in, and he got out several seconds in front of him then, so he managed to get in and out of that pit road with its tight chicane in. Now, as we look at Alain Prost, who's now leading very comfortably, he got through that very tight chicane in the pit road and booted it up the pit road, losing only something like sort of 13 seconds on the road for that slowing down and speeding up again, which is a very, very quick performance indeed. Prost now well in the lead, comfortable on his own. He's got 30 seconds, 26 seconds on Elio De Angelis, and it really now looks like a case of Prost nursing to the finish, and that will improve his championship situation if he can win this race very well indeed. An extra 9 points for Alan Prost will put him into the effective lead in the championship, because he'll be second behind Didier Pironi, who, of course, is highly unlikely to be driving again this season. Although I say he's making a very good recovery. The news is Brian Henton having a very good race, his best yet for Tyrrell. I think probably his best Grand Prix ever, running in 6th place. So that's a very good effort by Brian Henton, and a good effort by the Tyrrell team, who are running a very good car now.
Yes, and Brian, who finished 7th in the German Grand Prix, will be very happy about that. And there's a rather unhappy, I'm sure, Mark Surer coming into the pits in the Arrows for the second time. Doesn't look as though it's tyres this time, because they're taking the engine cover off. But on now, that 31, Alain Prost has got a very secure lead, having seen Riccardo Patrese spin out. And I dare say you saw, when you were looking at the Brabham with that long shot parked up on the Hella Licht curve, that the rear tyres were very definitely glistening in this very strong sunlight. And it looks to me as though it certainly was a mixture of oil and water on the tyres that took him off. And Nelson Piquet there, now you see the gap between Nelson Piquet and Keke Rosberg, and it's quite clear that Piquet cannot go as fast for whatever reason now as he was going before he came in to refuel and get new tyres. And Alain Prost on lap 31 is leading Elio De Angelis by some 27 seconds, with Piquet about 12 seconds behind De Angelis in 3rd position. Keke Rosberg is right with, and there is Tommy Byrne. Tommy Byrne is out of his first Grand Prix. It looks to me as though he's spun off, because look at the nose of the car, and his hands are moving. But I wish we could get a closer look at the front of the car. I'm worried that Tommy isn't getting out of it.
Yes, there's definitely damage. No, I think he's getting out all right now. No, he's waving his hands about. He doesn't look rubbish. He's just undoing his belt and getting everything going. And it wouldn't surprise me if Tommy just made a mistake out of tiredness, because it is his first Grand Prix, and the G-loads and the effort to drive the car for sure is like nothing that he will have ever driven before. And he'll, I would think, would be feeling the pace and feeling the effort a great deal. And it gets by this stage in a Grand Prix, when you've never done it before, you're really feeling it. Neck's getting tired, arms are getting tired, overheating, and it's all pretty much a nightmare. So that's the end of Tommy's opening nightmare.
And Piquet is slowing as we look at Niki Lauda, who is in 7th position. I can tell you that Piquet is not only slowing, he's stopped. He's running backwards, because Keke Rosberg has gone up into 3rd position. There is the world champion, and again, both Brabhams are out of the race. Piquet is coasting backwards down the hill, which leads up to the Hella Licht chicane, and that's just clear of the pits. So Piquet is running backwards into the pits.
Yes, I think he's just parking it out of the way to get it off the circuit, yeah. And get everything nice and neat and out of danger's way for other cars, of course. And that, of course, moves Brian Henton into 5th place on his way to 2 championship points, but still plenty of time for him to inherit more if he needs to. He's running about 7 or 8 seconds behind Jacques Lafitte at the moment. And he's got a fairly comfortable lead on Niki Lauda. Well, there's Nelson Piquet, pretty disappointed. We don't know what ailed him after his pit stop, but he never got into his stride again. It could have been that they put on a different tyre compound on his car that wasn't as successful as the plans they had for it. And of course, if that was the case, then they would have been having some useful information, of course, for Riccardo Patrese's car. Of course, that's one of the advantages of having 2 cars stopped. You can stop them at different times, as Brabhams did, and then view the form of the first one, because even during a race, it's sometimes good tactics to use a different compound. As track softens up, you can sometimes put on a softer compound than you had to use to start off with. And if that's the case, then Brabhams would have been able to learn from Piquet's obvious lack of grip and performance and stick on a more suitable compound on Patrase's car. Well, certainly until the time that we suppose it was his engine that blew up, but certainly something seemed to let go underneath his car and spread fluids all over his rear tyres, thereby causing that crash. And that looks like one of the McLarens, is it? Just suddenly parked there. I can't, of course, from the back of it identify which one.
Well, no, it's no, it's the one that's been. It's one of the Alfa Romeos. I think it's been parked there all along. But the interesting thing at the moment, I think, is that in this very, very hot race, there is now only one turbo car effectively in the running, and Brian Hinton is coming into the pits. Brian Hinton, who had worked his way up into 5th position, is coming into the pits, and hopefully you will see it soon. But meantime, with Brian Hinton getting out of the car, obviously to retire, I was saying that the interesting thing, there is Brian Hinton. Well, cruel luck as Sura comes into the pits yet again. We keep on seeing Sura come into the pits. Now, I will get this out in a minute, that there is only one turbo effectively left in the race. There is Tombe in the Ferrari, but he is well down the running in 11th position. And Prost, who is leading the race, is the only turbo in the really top positions, because there's a second-place car. You've just seen it. There is Elio De Angelis, and he's about to be lapped by Alain Prost. I think there is De Angelis in 2nd position. Keke Rosberg is 3rd. Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot is in 4th position. Brian Hinton was 5th, but now Niki Lauda moves up to 5th place as we look at Nelson Piquet explaining why he went out of the race.
Was not a blow up, but a cutout. Maybe can be electronic, I don't know what it is.
Nelson Piquet sagt, es war ein kurzer Motorschaden. Der Motor ist einfach stehen geblieben, keine große Explosion.
You heard Nelson. You heard Nelson Piquet there saying that he suspected the trouble was something electronic.
I prefer to stop and change the tire.
Okay, Nelson sagte, er hatte ein Loch im Hinterreifen und hat deswegen den Boxenstopp vorgezogen, kein Risiko einzugehen.
Piquet came in very early on the 17th lap instead of going half distance. You heard him say there that there was something wrong with his car and he preferred to come in and change his tyres. We noticed then that he didn't start to close up on De Angelis. He didn't pull away from Keke Rosberg. So it was very clear that Nelson Piquet was in trouble, and that was confirmed when he went out of the race in 4th position. And now on lap 35, there is the race leader, Alain Prost, number 15, the man who won in South Africa, who won in Brazil, was 2nd in France, is 4th in the World Championship, and could be on his way to his 3rd Grand Prix win of 1982. But there is still a long way to go, and these turbos are being affected by all sorts of things in this very hot Austrian Grand Prix, and Prost is the only turbo in the top 6 places, because Patrick Tombe in the Ferrari, car number 27, is in 9th position. He's coming up all the time, but on the 35th lap now, it is Prost leading De Angelis by about 31 seconds, closing up on number 20, Chico Serra, to lap him. Serra is in 10th position. So Prost now leading. De Angelis 2nd on lap 33. Rosberg is 3rd. Lafitte is 4th. In 5th position now is Niki Lauda. 6th is Mauro Baldi in the Arrows. 7th is John Watson. 8th is Tombe. 9th Serra. 10th is gosh, they're all coming out now. These are the only effective runners.
And just to tell you that it's still raining at Lord's, I'm afraid. There's the Lunt scoring in 2nd innings, 54 for 3. And Mudassa took all 3 wickets this morning. In fact, he was 3 for 0 at one stage. Botham 33, Taveray 8 at lunch. England still needing 147 to avoid an innings defeat, but it's pouring down there at the moment. Let's go back to the motor racing.
36, and you are looking at the comparatively new race leader of the Austrian Grand Prix, with Riccardo Patrese having spun out of the lead in his Brabham BMW, and that was Alain Prost, and here is the 2nd place man and the leading non-turbo, the highest he has ever been in a Grand Prix since Brazil 3 years ago, Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special. and he is 10 seconds ahead of the third place man, Keke Rosberg in the Williams, who is some 25 seconds ahead of Jacques Lafitte, fourth in the Talbot. Then a lap behind is Niki Lauda, fifth in the McLaren, sixth is Mauro Baldi, seventh is John Watson, eighth is Patrick Tambay, who is climbing up through the field after his tyre change a long time ago, ninth is Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi, and those are the only effective runners, because, for instance, Tommy Byrne, who was retired, just was 7 laps adrift, and so on down through the field. So really, if you take people down to 2 laps behind the leader, which is Chico Serra, there are only 9 cars effectively in the running on lap 37 with 16 still to go, and I feel very sure as we watch Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special completing his 36th lap in second place, that there are going to be several more cars who come out, because, James, the heat is tremendously demanding for both car and driver.
Yes, it really takes its toll mechanically, and of course this is a very hard circuit on engines as well, because they spend more time, more percentage of the time on the power, because it's such a fast circuit, so the engines are held at peak revs for long periods along these long straights, and that also takes its toll. So, as you rightly say, we can expect to see some more retirements before the end, and of course we're getting pretty short of effective runners already.
Yes, Patrick Tambay, who is in 8th position, for instance, is a lap behind. And we look now at Keke Rosberg, who in the Williams, the FW08 Williams, the Finnish driver, is in 3rd position. And he, for instance, is 41 seconds behind Prost. So the Renault team personnel, who have had a very checkered Grand Prix year of 1982, will obviously be keeping their fingers crossed and everything else, I suspect, and signalling Prost very carefully to conserve his car, conserve his tyres, and conserve himself, because 30 seconds odd, in fact rather more than 30 seconds, is actually a very commanding cushion to have at this stage of the race. 15 laps to go, including the one he's on. Keke Rosberg doesn't seem to be in any sort of trouble. The car is going well. He went very well in the warm-up, for instance. He was 7th fastest behind all the turbos and only the 2nd slowest of the 3-litre cars behind Alboreto, who went out. But let's look back as we watch Keke Rosberg and remind ourselves that Mark Surer was almost out before the race began, when he had to change cars just on the warm-up lap when an engine blew in his original car. Then we had the 2 Alfa Romeos of De Cesaris and Giacomelli go out. Tambay had tyre trouble. Michele Alboreto went off and out of the race. Roberto Guerrero is out. Derek Daly is out. Both Farby and Warwick, who were 6th and 7th in the Tolmans at the time, went out on the early laps. René Arnoux went out on lap 17 when he was in 4th position. Nigel Mansell went out of the race, and I suspect is hurrying home to his wife Roseanne to hope to be with her when their baby is born. Manfred Winkelhock is out. The leader, Riccardo Patrese, spun off in enormously spectacular style and is quite all right. Then Nelson Piquet, who had come into the pits like Patrese to see, and let us see for the first time, the Brabham fuel and tyre change that we had been expecting for the last 3 Grand Prix, went out of the race. Tommy Byrne is out, and now on lap 39 there are only 8 cars effectively in the race, by which I mean not more than lapped once, and Alain Prost leads by 60 seconds from De Angelis, who is 11 seconds ahead of Rosberg, who is 40 seconds ahead of Lafitte. Keke Rosberg in 3rd position on his own on the circuit, and some 30 seconds ahead of Jacques Lafitte, but behind, and I guess we'll probably see it soon, there is an enormous scrap going on between Niki Lauda, Mauro Baldi and John Watson for 5th position, with Lauda holding that place, 5th at the moment, just ahead of Baldi, who is 6th, who is just ahead of Watson, who is 7th. Torbay is 8th. Those four, Lauda, Baldi, Watson and Torbay, are a lap behind the race leader, Alain Prost, who has just gone through to complete his 39th lap. There are therefore 14 laps to go. And we look at Keke Rosberg. Now, Rosberg there, the Finnish driver in his 49th Grand Prix, is in 3rd position in the World Championship. If he finishes in the 3rd position that he's in now, that will give him four points. That will give him 31 points altogether. And that would actually move him ahead of John Watson, who is currently in 2nd place in the World Championship behind the injured Didier Pironi. So, Rosberg there completing his 39th lap. Now, it's interesting to conjecture, and we've actually got the opportunity to do it as we look at Elio De Angelis here, who is 2nd, what the World Championship situation would be. Well, Alain Prost is on 25 points, so another 9 will give him 34. It means that Pironi would still be leading the World Championship, albeit in hospital, but Alain Prost would be moving up into 2nd position. Now, Elio De Angelis is not effectively well up in the World Championship. Indeed, he's only in 11th place, and that means to say that Keke Rosberg would move up into 3rd position in the World Championship. However, all this is conjecture, because in these continuingly hot and very demanding conditions of the Österreich-Ring on lap 40, there are still 13 laps to go. 13 laps times just under 4 miles. That's about 50 laps to go, 50 miles to go, and they're going to be very demanding miles for, I think, Alain Prost in particular. Although we've said this, James and I, many times before, it bears saying again that if a turbo lasts half the race, it tends to last the rest of the race. And there is, as you see, Prost leading De Angelis now by 31 seconds, so the gap's coming down. Elio De Angelis in 2nd place, closing up on Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi, who is in 9th position. And the interesting thing at the moment is the gap that between 2nd place man Elio De Angelis there and Alain Prost coming down very much lap by lap. And if so, and we're going to check on it, is it because Prost is pacing himself, or because the Renault is going slower through no reason that Prost has got command over? Well, I don't know. All we can do as we watch De Angelis go round the Bosch curve and on his way towards the Texaco bends is to wait for Alain Prost to go past us, which he does now. I have started the stopwatch. You can see there that after 40 laps, the gap between Prost in the lead and De Angelis in 2nd place, and by the way, we are looking at Niki Lauda, who is now in 5th place, was 31 seconds, and I'll be able to tell you what the gap is now, because I'm waiting for Elio De Angelis to come through as we watch Lauda now into the Texaco bends. The race order continuing to be Prost leading, De Angelis 2nd, and it's still about the same gap. Rosberg 3rd, Lafitte 4th, Lauda 5th, Baldi 6th, Watson 7th, Torbay 8th, Chico Serra 9th, and that's the last runner that really matters, because those 9 people are the only people who are circulating the Österreich Ring at the moment. Niki Lauda crosses the line to complete his 40th lap, a lap behind the leaders, of course. Well, I wonder what's going through Alain Prost's mind now.
Well, it's the usual situation, I think. 31-second lead is more than adequately comfortable, and he'll be doing the normal tactics for a man with a big lead. That's slowing it down, cutting down the revs of his engine. In fact, Renault, I believe, don't give their drivers a turbo boost control in the cockpit of their cars, which always seems to me pretty stupid, because if I was driving the car now and I had a boost control, I'd be able to turn down the boost on my turbo, because cutting the power a little bit won't hurt his lap times very much. He's got plenty of room to play with 31-second lead, but of course it will definitely take some of the strain off the engine, and I don't really understand that. I was speaking to Gordon Murray this morning at Brabham's, and he was saying that they give their drivers the control. He said it depends whether you trust your driver or not. Well, I said to him that quite frankly, anybody who hires a driver they don't trust has done something fundamentally wrong in the first place, and so that's a pretty silly attitude of a team to take. They can't trust their driver. I don't know what they're going motor racing for. So that certainly is what I would do. I would insist on having a boost control in the cockpit and turn it right down to keep the car in one piece. That all helps. But anyway, he'll be cruising along, concentrating hard, trying not to make any mistakes, and keeping an eye on the gap to Elio De Angelis, which I'm sure he'd be quite happy to let slip a little bit, because it's not by how much you win a race that matters, it's just the fact that you win it.
Well, with the positions fairly static now, and we are on lap 43 out of 53, with Alain Prost that we look at now leading, it's worth mentioning Mauro Baldi, who is driving an excellent race. This is the little Italian's first season in Formula One. He's already got 1 6th place behind him. He's in 6th position at the moment. He finished 6th in Holland to give him 1 World Championship point. Alain Prost completing another lap there. I did take the gap between himself and Elio De Angelis on the previous lap, and it's staying almost exactly at 32 seconds. So it really does look as though Alain Prost has very much got the race under his control. The little Frenchman who was so injured and incensed when his teammate René Arnoux decided he would win the French Grand Prix, because although Prost was in 2nd place at the end of the race, it had been agreed that in order to increase his World Championship chances, Arnoux would let him through if necessary. And Prost has actually now lapped Jacques Lafitte, his countryman, the Frenchman, in the Talbot, who is in 4th place. And the Frenchman Prost that we're looking at now, who had trouble in the warm-up period, they got that right, bad oil leak in the V of the engine, will be beautifully settled down into a race-winning rhythm now. He only has to keep that rhythm up, watch the turbo boost gauge, watch his revs, watch his positioning on the circuit, all the usual sort of things, keep clear of the curbs so that he doesn't risk damaging his suspension. Look after his own reactions, and he knows that he is going to have yet another Grand Prix victory behind him. And number 15, Alain Prost, who has already won 5 Grand Prix in his career with 6 pole positions, the man who was the Junior World Championship kart driver in 1975, is on his way then to his 6th Grand Prix. And meantime, the only real interest in the race down the field is that Patrick Tambay is indeed charging, and as we forecast, and has now caught John Watson, who's in 7th place, and closing up on him.
Yes, he's catching Watson, but of course Watson's very close behind Mauro Baldi, and they're both, the pair of them, are not at all far behind Niki Lauda. So Tambay is in position to go pretty quickly and smartly through from his current 8th place back up all the way up to 5th place in the race, and get amongst the useful points. Well, I think it's unlikely that he could then catch Jacques Lafitte, because there's a fairly big gap to Lafitte in front of them. There is Lafitte cruising around in 4th place, lapped by the leader, of course, but I think probably just about safe from Tambay.
Well, hypothesis again, but if the positions stay as they are now, we're looking at Jacques Lafitte in the Tour, but the man who won this race last year, by the way, albeit in a very different Tour, but that was the JS7, and this is the rather unsuccessful JS19. There is the race leader, Alain Prost. But if they finish in the positions that they are in now, Didier Pironi will still be leading the World Championship from Hospital by 5 points, but up into 2nd place will go Alain Prost with 34. 3rd position, Rosberg with 31. Watson, who is currently 2nd, will slip down to 4th. And in 5th position will be Lauda, with Patrese, Arnoux and De Angelis tying for 6th place. And Patrick Tambay, as you look at Alain Prost, has caught and passed John Watson and is therefore up into 7th position. Race positions then on lap 46. Alain Prost leading Elio De Angelis by 31 seconds, and this is the race leader we're looking at. Keke Rosberg third, 6 seconds only behind De Angelis. Jacques Lafitte fourth, and he's been lapped by Prost, the race leader. Lauda is fifth and close to Lafitte, just ahead of Mauro Baldi, and Patrick Tambay is gaining on those two.
Well, we may be headed for a little bit of interest around second place, because Keke Rosberg has slowly but surely been chipping away at the gap with Elio De Angelis, and he's now only 6 seconds behind him, and therefore is close enough to see him, and that's always a little bit of a stimulus to the man behind. But now we're looking at race leader Alain Prost, and there is Niki Lauda. Is it, or is it John Watson? It's John Watson, in fact, going very slowly, headed for the pits by the look of things. So Watson in trouble, can't see what's wrong, but he doesn't appear to be hurrying into the pits. So by the way he's cruising around, that looks sadly to be the end of John Watson's race. Meanwhile, as I say, Rosberg is chipping very slowly away at De Angelis' lead. It's down to about 5.5 seconds now, and if he can catch him by the end of the race, of course, that could develop into quite a battle. De Angelis does not have John Watson just cruising into the pit. Disappointing for him, whereas things are looking very good for the World Championship. I think his suspension failure, which is what it was in Germany last weekend, that something went wrong with the front suspension, was a bitter blow to his championship hopes, and his whole performance this weekend have not really been up to championship form. And I think that was expected by most people, but it's disappointing that they should be sort of evaporating quite so fast all of a sudden. There is De Angelis, and there he is. You see, Rosberg's got that gap down to 5 and a bit seconds now from 6 seconds only a lap and a half ago. So Rosberg is coming at De Angelis, and De Angelis' strength, and that was Rosberg just coming to the shot as it changed there. So he's in sight. And that, of course, there is Rosberg behind. And that, of course, is always gives you a little bit of added adrenaline, a little bit of push when you get, the closer you get to your opponent, the better you can see him, the more attractive he looks as a target to pass. And whilst we know that Rosberg is certainly very, very strong and very fit and could definitely and will definitely go all the way fighting to the finish line, we have a little question mark over Elio De Angelis, just how fit and strong he is to put up a fight at the end of the race. And when I say there's no question that he's fit, and there's no question that he's reasonably strong, but it's the old story. These cars really are so hard to drive. They really are just about beyond reasonable physical limits. So it looks to me as if De Angelis is struggling a little bit to protect that lead, and we may be in for a close run-in for second place by the end of the race.
Lap 48, and the gap now, this is the only real excitement in the race, is down to 4.4 seconds between Elio De Angelis in second place on his 48th lap and Keke Rosberg in third position. And the really exciting thing is that it seems pretty clear that the World Championship is going to go right down to the last race at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas before it is decided, because if Keke Rosberg can get ahead of Elio De Angelis, it would give him another 2 World Championship points, and you can see how close to it he is now. That would give him 33 points, and he would then only be 1 point behind Prost, who would be effectively, I think, leading the World Championship, because it must be impossible for Pironi to come back. Now, Tambay is up into 6th position behind this lot, and on lap 48, the race order is Alain Prost leading by 30 seconds. Elio De Angelis less than 4 seconds almost now, ahead of Keke Rosberg, who is third. Jacques Lafitte is fourth. Niki Lauda is in 5th position. Patrick Tambay is 6th ahead of Baldi, 7th. Serra is 8th. And John Watson is out of the race now, so there are only 8 runners on lap 49 in this 53-lap race. Here is the battle for second place, and that is Prost's car. The Renault is in flames. The race leader is out. Alain Prost, it's happened yet again. First of all, Arnoux out, now Prost out, and we're going to have Elio De Angelis or Keke Rosberg winning the Austrian Grand Prix. What incredible drama.
Well, there we go, and that looked like blown turbochargers. Alain Prost very disappointed, very angry with the car, and I have to say that I think it might be quite coincidental. On the other hand, it might be well relevant that what I was saying just a little while ago about Renault not trusting their drivers to give them a boost knob, which, as well as being good for reliability in the race, is also good to be able to turn it up just to pass somebody to get a little bit of extra power when needed. If you don't trust your driver, you ask for trouble, and I have to say that if he turned his boost down by the equivalent of, say, 50 horsepower, and there is Tombe going through past Lauda into now third place. So Patrick Tombe is really scoring the points as the leaders drop out. That puts Tombe third. Lauda briefly went into third with Prost's demise, now sharply pushed back down to fourth. And of course Rosberg is now catching De Angelis, and they're racing for the lead. But I have to say, great disappointment for Prost, but it actually helps Murray's hypothesis for the World Championship in a way, because Prost, if he'd won this one, was looking like he might just run away before Vegas. And now we really must have a close run to the end of it.
Well, lap 49, and here is Keke Rosberg, and you can see how he is trying as he comes now into the finishing straight. He is on lap 50, and let's get the race order clear. Elio De Angelis, there he is leading on lap 50. He is only about 4 seconds or even less ahead of Keke Rosberg, who is really trying. In third position is Jacques Lafitte in the Talbot. In fourth place now is Patrick Tombe, who has climbed all the way up through the field and looks as though he's going to finish in the points yet again in a fine drive for Ferrari, having changed his tyres. Then is Niki Lauda, and Mauro Baldi is well up there. In fact, it is De Angelis, Rosberg, and Jacques Lafitte is going extremely well, and there is the battle. Now watch this. Elio De Angelis, number 11, his highest finish so far was second in the Brazilian Grand Prix in 1980. He's had a string of 4th, 5th and 6th this year and last year, and only today he has announced that he has re-signed with the John Player Special Lotus team for 1983, and so has Nigel Mansell, and it looks as though it may have been a wonderful moment to do it, because if this man, number 11, Elio De Angelis, the 24-year-old Roman who lives in Monaco, can stave off the fiercely charging Finnish driver Keke Rosberg in the Williams, he will be winning his first Grand Prix. He's coming into the finishing straight. I'll give you the gap between himself and Keke Rosberg. You can see De Angelis, and the gap is now 3.08 seconds.
Yes, and De Angelis has really risen to the occasion. I think leading the Grand Prix, he's finding plenty of energy. There is Rosberg. He seems a little bit closer, but as I say, De Angelis seems very cool out front there. He seems at the moment to be handling the pressure well, and he's certainly put on a spurt, because Rosberg is giving it everything he's got behind. That's visible. And De Angelis, I was watching him through the corners, is driving very smoothly and very well. And at the moment, he looks to be handling things extremely well, because it's a moment of great pressure. In sight of the checkered flag of your first Grand Prix, with the most unfortunate sight of somebody breathing down your neck right behind in your mirrors, makes the whole thing rather sort of takes the icing off the cake.
Out of the Bosch curve. They are now on lap 51 in this 53-lap race, and what a grandstand finish it's going to be for the Austrian Grand Prix. There is the fiercely charging Keke Rosberg, who was bitterly disappointed when he took pole position in the British Grand Prix to have his engine die on him on the warm-up lap. He started from the back of the grid. He was confidently expecting to win the British Grand Prix, but that victory was denied him, and it could be that he's going to come good here. It could be, but only if he can catch and get past Elio De Angelis. They're coming up now to complete lap 51. Lafitte is still third, Tombe fourth, Lauda fifth, Baldi in the arrows sixth, and the gap between De Angelis and Rosberg is now down to 2.2 seconds as they go into the Hella Licht chicane. That is third gear as they come out of it. accelerate away up to 175 miles an hour towards the glass curve.
Well, De Angelis has got enough to keep his lead to stay in front. That he's proved. His big problem is to stay cool, because if he starts to get flustered, he runs the risk of making a mistake and/or driving messily, and that will take speed off, because when he drives smoothly and coolly, as he has been doing on some laps, he's got a bit ragged on others. When he drives it smoothly, he keeps his lead in front of Rosberg, but Rosberg is steadily chipping away, and he looks to be just that little bit closer as they come down to go round the Bosch curve for the penultimate time. He's got a lap and a half to go.
Yes, and I am quite sure that when Keke Rosberg catches De Angelis, not if, he's going to catch him, but when he catches him, Elio De Angelis is without doubt going to have the widest car on the circuit. He will be going into the corners as wide as possible. He will be keeping Rosberg back as much as he possibly can. And even somebody as determined as Keke Rosberg, and he's probably the most determined driver on the track, is going to have all his time cut out to get past Elio De Angelis. But they're coming up to back markers. They're coming through now to complete lap 52 and into the last lap in this race. And the gap, as they do that, is 1.64 seconds.
Yeah, so I don't think if De Angelis keeps cool, he's not going to have to get wide, because he's got enough lead to keep it, to just keep the gap going. But Rosberg is really charging. But De Angelis has got just about enough air to keep that gap for the rest of the lap. But what an exciting finish of the Grand Prix. Rosberg is imperceptibly closing. Any minute now, Rosberg coming in fast into the corner. He's giving it everything. And now, if Rosberg is close enough, he'll be beginning to feel the effect of the tow from De Angelis' car. He is, in fact, close enough. And now Rosberg's in position just about to have a go. He is going to be able to catch him before the end of the lap. Fantastic finish.
Well, let's see. Rosberg right with De Angelis now. One of these two is going to win the Austrian Grand Prix. They go into the Bosch curve for the last time. I can tell you that the whole Lotus team and the whole Williams team are crowding the pit rails. It's going to be one of the closest Grand Prix finishes for a long, long time. Into the Texaco bend, 140 miles an hour. On the left, De Angelis leading, on the right, Rosberg second.
Well, Rosberg's only chance is a do-or-die manoeuvre into the last corner, and he's coming out quicker through there. He's getting the tow. Can he get inside now? De Angelis taking the inside line. Rosberg getting the tow. Rosberg should try the outside. Oh, it's fantastic stuff. De Angelis kept him well blocked. That's very excusable on the last lap, but Rosberg's coming at him. They're going to finish side by side, and De Angelis has just held it.
Up goes Elio De Angelis' hand. And the young Roman has won his first Grand Prix, and he has put the hard-trying John Player Special Lotus team back into contention again. And this is marvellous news for them. They've given us the news yesterday that next year they will be using Renault engines, although maybe after the troubles that we've seen today and in the previous Grand Prix, they need to make sure they've got a reliable one. But Elio De Angelis, as Jacques Lafitte finishes in third position, is justifiably beside himself with joy. He has sometimes been accused of being more of a playboy than a racing driver, but he has proved today that that is certainly not the case. There is Niki Lauda, who is coming through in fifth position, and that is Torbay finishing fourth, and behind Lauda will be Mauro Baldi. So Elio De Angelis has won his first Grand Prix, the Austrian Grand Prix, by less than half a car's length from Keke Rosberg. Third, Jacques Lafitte. Fourth, Patrick Torbay. Fifth, Niki Lauda. Sixth, Mauro Baldi. And that means to say that Pironi is still leading the World Championship. And look at this replay.
Yes, Rosberg got up alongside. I can't help feeling that if Rosberg had been racing for the lead 25 laps ago and had felt then that he had a chance to win, he might have been with De Angelis a lot earlier. He really got the bit between his teeth the last few laps. He drove a fantastic last 6 or 7 laps, and there they are, crossing the line, half a car's length in it. Closest Grand Prix for quite a while, and at last we've had a good race. But very, very well done by Elio De Angelis. He handled the pressure and that terrible last couple of laps very well indeed, did the business, and thoroughly deserved that win once it became a Ford engine race and the turbos had all destroyed themselves.
Yes, the 150th victory for the incredible Ford V8 Cosworth engine. And that means to say that in the World Championship, Didier Pironi still leads from hospital, but to second position goes Keke Rosberg, 6 points behind, 3 points ahead of John Watson, who moves down to third position. Niki Lauda, fourth on 24, Alain Prost in fifth position, and Elio De Angelis in sixth place. The World Championship is almost certainly going down to the last race of the year. Niki Lauda, by the way, on 26 points. And there is confirmation of it. Pironi leads, Rosberg second, Watson third, Lauda fourth, Prost fifth, and Elio De Angelis sixth, with Riccardo Patrese, Arnoux, Tombe and Piquet following through to 10th positions after one of the most exciting Grand Prix of all time.